Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back into another edition of Key Time Sports. This show is going to be another edition of my remaining season outlook for the NBA teams that are pursuing a playoff spot. Now, the team that I'm going to be covering today is the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, the Memphis Grizzlies are currently second in the West right now at 38-20. So now we see that they are one of the top teams, if not the top team in the NBA. And I'm going to go down their roster right now and name all of the players who are on their roster. The first one is Santi Almada, Marvin Bagley III, Desmond Bain, Brian Clark, Zach Edey, Jay Huff, G.G. Jackson, Jaren Jackson Jr., Yuki Kamara, Luke Kennard, John Kotcher, Ja Morant, Scottie Pippen Jr., Zoe Poulin, Cam Spencer, Lamar Stevens, Jalen Wells, Vince Williams Jr., and for their coach, his name is Taylor Jenkins. Now, this guy, well, this team rather, the Memphis Grizzlies, they were projected to be, one of the one of the playoff teams in the Western Conference with a potential to be a top team. So right now, when we look at it, right now we see Memphis as the second and then OKC as the first team in the West. Now, both of those teams are inexperienced, OKC and Memphis. But back to Memphis. The Memphis Grizzlies, as far as when it comes to this era and basically throughout the entirety of their history, they have had seasons where they have underperformed. Now, before I get into their historical stats, I'm going to go to their season statistics. Can someone pull up the stats for me, please? Thank you very much. So, as far as for their season statistics, players, Jaren Jackson Jr., 22.9 points, Ja Morant, 20.8, Desmond Bain, 18.1, Santi Almada, 12.8, Jalen Wells, 11.4, Luke Kennard, 9.3, Scottie Pippen Jr. and Zach Edey, 9.1 points each, G.G. Jackson, Marcus Smart, 8.7 points a game each, Brandon Clark, 8 points, Jake La Riva, 7.3, Jay Huff, 7.3, Vince Williams Jr., 6.2, Cam Spencer, 4 points, Jonathan Kotcher, 2.5, Colin Castleton, 1.4, Yuki Kumara, 1.2, Marvin Bagley III and Zion Poulin, zero point 0 points throughout this season. So now you see that Jaren Jackson is the leader in points, Zach Edey is the leader in rebounds, Ja Morant, leader in assists, Jaren Jackson Jr., the leader in steals and blocks. So now, when we look at this, I'm going to go to their depth, the depth of their roster. Now, currently, their second, the leader of the second unit and starter, Desmond Bain, he is listed day to day. He has a nagging injury. So now, their starters for the Memphis Grizzlies, their whole starting five at combined, they average 65 points per game on a good night. Their second lineup, Luke Kennard, Vince Williams, Gigi Jackson, Santi Almada, Brandon Clark, they can average somewhere between 30 and 35 points per game coming off the bench as a unit. Third unit, now that's where it has a significant drop off. Those guys can't really take over a game. They are just there in mop up duty. Fourth unit, same exact thing. And the fifth unit, they hardly ever get a chance to play. And by the way, Zion Poulin, he is out. He has an injury. He is out for the foreseeable future. Now, one thing I can say is that this is the wrong time of the season to have injuries galore. This is the wrong time. So now, Zion Poulin, he has a knee injury. He has been ruled out for tonight's game versus the Knicks. Desmond Bane, he is battling a groin injury. He is day to day and is questionable for tonight's game. Now, when everybody looks at the Memphis Grizzlies, what do you think about? You think about a team that is young and upcoming, but this team has been basically full of hype over the last couple of years. And let me tell you, the Memphis Grizzlies throughout their franchise history has been full of hype. I am going to show you their historical stats. Somebody please put up their historical stats for me, please. Thank you very much. Now, this is the Memphis Grizzlies as a history as a franchise. First, they started out in Vancouver. Their very first season, they were 15-67, so they were just bad. But they didn't find success until 2003. They made it to the playoffs, lost in the first round for 3 straight years from 2003 and 2003. No, excuse me, 2004. They lost in the first round. 2005, they lost. 2006, they lost in the first round. And then there were 4 years of just inconsistency. You have the Grizzlies going 22-60 in 07 and 08. Then you have the Grizzlies going 24-58 in 08 and 09. 2010, it wasn't much better. They were 40-42. They just did miss out on a playoff berth. Then 2011, with Lionel Hollins as head coach, they started to get into the playoffs. They got into the playoffs. They won their first round series, lost in the second round. Fast forward the following year, they lost in the West. They lost in the first round. So, and then follow that up. The next following year, they get to the conference finals and lose to the Spurs. Like I've been saying, this franchise, they've gained playoff success in spurts. That's what this is. When you see their franchise history, they have gained playoff success in spurts. Now, 2015, they made it to the playoffs, got knocked out of the second round. 2016, knocked out of the first round. 2017, they got knocked out of the first round. And then there is a 3-year stretch where they didn't even make the playoffs. And then in 21, first round exit. 22, second round exit. 23, first round exit. Last year didn't make the playoffs. And currently this year they are 38-20. So now, everybody, I'm pretty sure you all are asking me, what does all of this mean, Key Time? It means that no matter what the Memphis Grizzlies do, we can't believe it until we see it. Now, Memphis Grizzlies, they are one of the top teams. They are a championship contender. Nobody is taking that away from them. But the lack of experience when it comes to winning games and playoff series, that is gonna hurt the Memphis Grizzlies because, like I said, a couple years ago they were in a playoff series with the Los Angeles Lakers and they got dominated in games 4, 5, and 6. That's what I mean. So the Memphis Grizzlies, they are still one of the young and upcoming teams in the NBA. But let me tell you, all of that is about to run out because you got Ja Morant. He's been there for 4 years now. Desmond Bain, he's been there for 3. Then you have this coach. This coach, he's been there since 2020. He's been there since 2020, and the furthest that Taylor Jenkins has gotten the Memphis Grizzlies is a second round playoff exit in 2022. Last season didn't do much. This season they are on a roll, and more than likely now you could just pencil them in for the playoffs. Now, let's see what the Memphis Grizzlies can do when it comes to the playoffs because let me tell you, I have seen the Memphis Grizzlies have good teams over the years, but it seems like when they get to that certain threshold, they aren't able to produce. Meaning, like I said, Western Conference appearance in 2014, they wasn't able to produce. Then you get to that's the furthest that they have ever been in their franchise history back in 2013, getting to the Western Conference Finals and playing against the Spurs. Ever since then, it has just been I wouldn't say much of a consistent decline, but it's just been a up and down roller coaster. A few years you're up, then a few years you start going down, and now this year they're up. So now let's see what they can do. Now, for before I get into my final take, the Memphis Grizzlies as a team, outside of Ja Morant, we know what Ja Morant is going to do. But as far as the Grizzlies bench production is going to have to increase in the playoffs because some nights, well, excuse me, not some nights, but some games in the playoffs, the opponent is going to be focused on the Memphis Grizzlies' top 3 players. They're gonna try and shut them down. That's why the second unit has to step up, and the players that are way down the bench are gonna have to step up too, because it's all play in the playoffs. It's all about matchups. No matter what league you are in, it's all about matchups. And no matter what teams they are gonna try and stop, they are gonna try and stop your best player. In this case, the Grizzlies' best player is Ja Morant. Do I think somebody can stop Ja Morant? No, I don't think so. I think Ja Morant, he can still get his 20 to 25 points a game, but the bench, I always go back to the bench. It is going to be on the bench to will the Memphis Grizzlies through a playoff series because it's been a minute. It's been a minute since the Grizzlies have won a playoff series and won it decisively. Let me tell you now, I know that this team has pretty much been up and down throughout the entirety of their career, but if there has ever been a player throughout the Memphis Grizzlies franchise that can push them up to new heights, it is Ja Morant. Now, I believe Ja Morant, he needs another player that can find their own shot because when when you look at the Grizzlies roster right now, who outside of Ja Morant can find their own shot on this roster? Nobody. Nobody can find their own shot. You see Desmond Bain. You see Desmond Bain. He has a little shot here and there, but as far as him going down the floor and pretty much just, you know how Ja Morant does, just pushing everybody over to one side, backing everybody out, and then all of a sudden Ja Morant is making the shot. Desmond Bain can't do that. Now, I'm not going to say Desmond Bain can't do that, but the difficulty of Desmond Bain doing that is because Desmond Bain is a shooting guard. He is not a person that brings the ball down the floor. Those are point guard duties. And that's why Ja Morant basically brings the ball down the floor, because his position is a point guard. So now, when you look at the Memphis Grizzlies' remaining schedule, now they have their final 27 games. I believe that they can win at least 15, if not 16 of those 27 games. Now, there are a couple of tough matchups on their remaining schedule. Now, tonight they have New York. That's gonna be a tough matchup. Then tomorrow you have the Spurs. The Grizzlies have the Spurs. Then they have then the Spurs then the Memphis Grizzlies have the Oklahoma City Thunder on Wednesday. Then they have Dallas. Now Dallas, they are a sleeper. They are a sleeper because Dallas, they can make games look ugly and then find a way to win in the end. Phoenix still trying to make a playoff push for the play-in tournament. Then you have Cleveland, March 14th. Then you have Portland, Sacramento, the Clippers. Then you have Oklahoma again. And then here's the gauntlet of the schedule. You have OKC, the Los Angeles Lakers, Boston Celtics, Golden State Warriors. Then you have Miami. Miami is always going to be tough. Then you have Detroit. So that's a good last 2.5 weeks of the season. Not to mention the last 3 days of the season, you have Minnesota, Denver, and Dallas, all who are fighting for playoff spots. So the Memphis Grizzlies, right now at this point, they are the second team in the West. And plus, when it comes to their offense, they average 120. They average 123 points per game. They are allowing 116 points per game. So, Memphis Grizzlies, good team, gonna make the playoffs. It's a foregone conclusion that they are gonna make the playoffs. But let's see what kind of matchup they are gonna have in the playoffs with them being the second seed. Now, if things were to stay in place right now, the Memphis Grizzlies, they would be playing the Golden State Warriors. They would be playing and let me tell you, Golden State, they've won 8 of their last 9. Golden State is much more efficient than what they were earlier in the season. And let me tell you, Memphis, they have had problems with Golden State in the past when it comes to previous playoff appearances. Now, let's see what the Golden State Warriors can do, because Golden State, a week and a half ago, Golden State was at the 10th spot. Now, they are at the 7th spot. And let me tell you, Golden State, they are another sleeper team out there. So Dallas and Golden State is a sleeper team. So my final take for the Memphis Grizzlies is, yeah, Memphis Grizzlies. My final take for them is Memphis Grizzlies. They this season will be a success, but Memphis Grizzlies aren't going to the Western Conference Finals. I don't see the Memphis Grizzlies going to the Western Conference Finals. They'll make it to the second round, but there will be a more superior team, a much more deeper team when it comes to the bench that will beat the Memphis Grizzlies. Like I said, when we look at the Western Conference, the top four teams, well, excuse me, the top five teams, I think top five in the West is going to stay the same. Now, teams 6 through 10, that is going to fluctuate between now and the end of the season. And just like I said, teams 6 through 10, they are only separated by 2 games in the win column. So we could we could wake up tomorrow morning and see 6 through 10 change. But that's the difference. That's the difference about the NBA. Nothing, and I do mean no record is safe, no spot is safe coming down the stretch, because a team can have injuries here and there, and all of a sudden their season is done. So with that, that is my remaining season outlook for the Memphis Grizzlies. Please like, comment, share, subscribe. Click the notification bell to get notified of all of my reaction videos, shows, and other content. Also, please like, share, and follow Key City Sports on Instagram. We are currently doing an expansion on both shows, Key Town Sports and Key City Sports. Thank you to everybody who has watched the show every day. And also, please still keep on watching and keep on looking out for my latest content every day of the week. March Madness is coming up. I am going to be doing things on this platform, YouTube and Instagram, for March Madness. So watch out for that. And one last thing, remember, the key is always on time.